Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today in this video I want to share with you guys how to make this beautiful blouse that I'm putting on right now. This is something you can wear on a trouser as well as on a skirt. So for this tutorial, the major part of this top that I think might be a little bit hard for some people is the sleeve, which has a normal puff sleeve and then another gathered sleeve on top of it. So if you're interested in learning how to make this for yourself, keep on watching and let's get started. So guys, to make this top you will need a small elastic for the sleeve, and then also you will need a lining piece, the one that is matching the whatever fabric you're using, and then you will need your actual fabric. And for this particular tutorial I'm making use of an Ankara print and I have about 2 yards of it. So we also have our measuring material, and I have my pattern paper because I always prefer to draft my patterns on my pattern paper before directing it into the actual fabric. So let's go ahead and draft the pattern. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is draw a straight line across the top of this pattern paper here. So this is going to serve as our shoulder line. So after getting the shoulder line, from that line I am coming down by 10 inches. 10 inches is the measurement from my shoulder down to my bust point. I just marked it there, and now I'm coming down to my waist, which is the measurement from my shoulder down to my waist. It's 15 inches. I just marked it, and then I'm going to take the remaining part of the pattern paper as the full length of the dress. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to draw lines across those points I just made, and I have the shoulder line, the bust line, and then this one here is the waistline. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to start adding my body measurements. So on this shoulder line here, I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement by 2. I did, and I marked it here. So go ahead and divide your shoulder measurement by 2 and make a point, and then come down by 1 inches from whatever that point is and just slant it into the shoulder line again like this. So when you're through with that, the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is to find our armhole depth. And what I normally used to do is to divide my bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5 to that. So I did that and got my measurement, and what I'm just doing now is to just connect this shoulder slope here down to meet that point, and then I will take it to the side, and sometimes I just like to label this the chest line. So now the next thing you want to do is this line here, from here to this point. Whatever you have there, I'm just going to go ahead and divide it into 2 equal halves. So you divide it into 2 equal halves, make a point there, and from that point go in by ½ of an inch. So when you've done that, the next thing you want to do is on this line that I labeled CL, you're going to come down here and divide your bust measurement by 4 and make a point there. So you're going to connect these 3 points to the shoulder slope to give you your armhole curve. So as you can see, my curve is actually broken, so I'm just trying to make do with what I have right now. So this is actually something you can do with your free hand if you don't have a French curve. So now the next thing we're going to do is to get our dart. So you're going to divide your nipple to nipple measurement by 2 and mark it on this bust line here. Do the same thing on the waistline and then on the end of the top. And what I'm just going to do is to connect the 3 of them with a straight line like this. And the next thing you will do is on the waistline, you're going to come in and out of both sides of the straight line by ½ of an inch on both sides. I don't know if you guys understand me. So when you're through with that, come to the bust line and come down by 1 inch, and then when you're through, just connect everything to meet the point, just like you see me connecting it like this. Just connect everything to get your dart. So guys, when you're through marking out your dart, the next thing you want to do is to add your body measurement. So on this CL line and on the bust line, you're going to mark your bust measurement divided by 4. So you do it on the both lines here, and then add 1½ inch for stitching allowance on both parts. Then you come down to this waistline, divide your waist measurement by 4, and then here you're going to replace the 1 inch dart that we have in between here, and then we'll add 1½ inch stitching allowance just like we did at the top. And then on the last place here, which is the end of the top, you're going to divide your hip measurement by 4 and then add 1½ inch for stitching allowance. So what you're going to do now is to just join the last points together, just like you see me doing like this. It's going to give you something looking like this. So this is what we have, right? In the one that I followed, there was kind of like a slant on the side of the top, but I don't want that, so we're just going to go ahead and use this the way it is. Now remember that this is the bust line, right? So if your neck gets to this bust line, it means that your breast is going to be showing when you put on this top. So from the shoulder line, I'm coming down by about 6.5 inches for how deep I want my neckline to be. So guys, so from this armhole area, I'm going to go in by about 1.5 inch here. You can go in by as much as 2 inches. It depends on how wide you want your neckline to be. So after doing that, just connect a straight line like you see me doing like this. It's going to give you a shape looking like an L. So this is just the neckline that you see in this particular top that we are making right now. So if you want it to be a little bit smaller, you can go ahead and reduce the measurement you use. So guys, this is basically all for the front pattern. So the next thing now is to draft out the back, and as you can see, I've drawn a straight line across, and the measurement from the end of the pattern paper to the line is about 1.5 inch, and it's going to be my zipper allowance. So as you can see, I'm just placing the front pattern paper on that line I made, as you can see right now. So I'm just cutting out every other thing the same, taking note of that zipper allowance that I'm going to be leaving for the back pattern. So guys, these are the front and the back pattern. So one thing I want to do is to extend the waistline into the zipper allowance for the back pattern, and after doing that, I'm going to come in by 1 inch. So I'm just going to slant it up into the neckline and then down to the end of the top. This is going to help remove any bulginess by the time we fix our zipper to the back of the top. So guys, this is finally all for the drafting of this pattern. So now I'll go ahead and use it to cut on my actual fabric. So guys, I added about 1 inch to the pattern paper, to the end of the pattern paper, because this pattern paper was not enough for the full length I wanted this top to be. So if your pattern paper was enough, you don't need to add as much as 1 inch, just like I did at the end of this top. So yeah, I went ahead to use it to cut on the actual fabric, and I'm just going to also use it to cut on the lining. So this is what I have. This is the pattern for the front and the back. So these ones right here are the back pieces. So while I was cutting the back pieces on the actual fabric, I decided to make the neckline a little bit deeper than what we have in front. So from here I have 7.5 inches, and here in front I have 6 inches. So I added 1.5 inch to the depth of the back neckline. So this is totally optional, but I just really I felt like the back neckline would be better if it's deeper. So now that we are through with that, the next thing I'm just going to do is I'm placing my lining and my actual fabrics right side facing each other like this, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch down the neckline, this side, and also this ends. So the neckline, the sides, and then the end of the dress. I'm going to do the same thing to the back pieces as well. So for the back, we stitch down the neck, the zipper area, the end of the top, and then the side as well. So guys, as you can see, I've stitched it down here, and then on the end. I also did the same thing for the lining pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to the right side. So before you turn it over, make sure that you make notches around the neckline. This was something I forgot to do initially, but I ended up doing it later. So make notches around the neckline before you go ahead and turn it over to the right side, so that everything will come out really nicely. So yeah, this is what I have after turning it to the right side. So we'll go ahead and iron it out. So guys, I've ironed out all my pieces, and you can see how nicely they are all looking. So these are the two back pieces. So now the next thing I want to go ahead and do is to work on the darts. Remember that we had darts on our pattern paper when we drafted this out. So I'm just bringing back the front piece of my pattern paper. I'm just arranging it in place to mark the point where the pattern paper, the dart actually is going to start on the actual fabric. So I'm just going to use my chalk to make a point here. So this is where my dart is supposed to be on the fabric, and I'll just do it on the both side as well. So from this point, I'll just fold it in. While I'm on the sewing machine, I'm going to measure from here down to where the dart will actually start. And I'll do the same thing for the back pieces as well, using the back pattern paper. So guys, I've measured and I've stitched down the darts for the front and the back pieces, as you can see here. And I've also gone ahead to use my gather stitch to just join the zipper allowance together for now, so that my two back pieces are not coming in the way when I'm trying to sew this. It just makes it easier when the back pieces are not flying around. So the next thing I want to do now is to join the shoulders together. And as you can see, what I'm doing, I'm placing them right sides facing each other, and I'm using one piece of the lining to cover every other one, as you see me doing like this. So use one lining to cover every other one and go ahead and stitch it down, and I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. So guys, after sewing it like that, this is what it looks like. So this is why I like to join my shoulder like this, by covering it up with one part of the lining, because by the time you turn it out, it just looks really nice and easy. Can you see how beautiful this is? All the allowances are all inside and it looks really nice. So guys, the next thing I want to do now is to go ahead and join the sides of the top together. So you will need to take your body measurements here. So you'll be dividing your bust measurement by 2 and marking it here, and then you do the same thing for the waistline and also to the end of the top. So when I'm stitching this down, I'll leave about 1 inch at this top area here before I start doing it down, because I need to be able to freely fix my sleeve to the top. So this is what I had after I was done stitching down the sides of this top. So now the next thing we're going to do is to work on the sleeves. So now for the sleeve, we're going to be needing a puff exaggerated sleeve, but to do that you will need to first of all have a basic sleeve pattern, which is what I have here. I've already gone ahead to draft out a normal basic sleeve, and the length I have is the length I need this sleeve to be. So the end of this sleeve here, as you can see, you're going to take the measurement you have here. What I have here is 6 inches, so you're just going to divide it equally in a way that best suits the measurements you have. For me, I have 6 inches, so I can decide to take 1 inch if I want, 2 inches, or 1.5 inch all the way around, which is what I just used, 1.5 inch. So I just marked 1.5 inch intervals, and as you can see, I'm just using my ruler to just connect it all the way to the top, and I just labeled it 1 to 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my scissors to just slash all of them all the way to the end. So now after that, we're going to go ahead and fold our pieces that we're going to use for the sleeve. So I folded it into two equal halves. You see the center part here is going to be the center of our sleeve. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to get the part that I'm going to use to fold up the end of the sleeve for our elastic casing, which is for the elastic at the end of the sleeve. So I'm just marking 1 inch from the end of this fabric here. So this is going to be for our fold. So after marking that 1 inch line, the next thing you want to do is the one labeled 1, ensure that you are coming in from this folded part of the fabric and not from this side, so that you don't end up wasting your fabric. So place the very first one on this line like this, just like you see me doing like this, and ensure that it ends at the white line like this. So when you're through with that, the next thing you're going to do is bring the one that is labeled 2, and before you pin down the second one, we're going to measure the distance in between the two pieces. So I'm going to be making use of 4 inch distance for all of my pieces. You can decide to use 3 inch, you can decide to use 5 inches. It all depends on how wide you want the distance between each of the pieces to be. So the wider it is, the more bigger your puff is going to be. So for me, I'm using 4 inches, so that means that if you make use of about like 5 inches, it's going to be bigger than what I have here. So after doing that, as you can see, I just went ahead to trace out the new armhole, and then I'm just cutting out every other thing. So like I said before, if you don't want your sleeve to be as puff as the one I had in the beginning of this video, you can go ahead and reduce yours, maybe using 2 or 3 inches as your difference between each of them. So now the next thing I want to do is to cut out the other piece that is going to be gathered on top of this puff sleeve. So for that one, I want the length to come out to be about 5.5 inches. So I'm going to get another piece of fabric, which is what I have here. It's also folded into two because I want to cut the two sleeves again the same way I did in front. So what you're going to do is to place the armhole side of your sleeve, that's the puff sleeve, on this new tiny piece that we had here, and you're just going to go ahead and trace it out just like I did here. Can you see? So when you've done that, the next thing I want to do is that I'm just going to make a curve, and for this I'm just using my free hand. So what I have here is just exactly the measurement I wanted, so by the time I'm done stitching everything down, it will come out nicely just like I want. So I'm just making a nice curve to cut away some part of this sleeve just like I did here, because I don't want this one on top to be as long as the one that is going to be under. So I just made that curve under. As you can see, I use my free hand. There's no special method to doing that, just use your free hand. And when you're done, just go ahead and fold the end of the sleeve, not the armhole area, the end, like this, all the way to the end. Do it for the both pieces. So this is what I mean. So this is what I did here, you can see, for this particular sleeve, and then I did the same thing for the other one as well. So now we're going to bring the bigger sleeve, which is going to be the puff sleeve, and then this small one is going to be on top of it like this. But we're going to need to gather the both of them, to make gathers on the both of them. So before then, I've gone ahead to fold the end of this bigger sleeve, this puff sleeve, so that we'll have a space for our elastic to pass through. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make a gather stitch on this top one here, and also a gather stitch on this one that is going to be under. So I don't know if you guys understand what I mean. So I made a gather stitch on this armhole area of this tiny one on top. So basically we'll just go ahead and pull on one of the threads. If you're not comfortable with using one, you can go ahead and make two gather stitches, so that in case one pop, you can easily continue with the other one. This one of me doing only one is actually kind of risky. So as you can see, I just pulled on one part of the thread to get that top piece gathered into a very nice piece, as you can see. And now for the other part of the sleeve as well, which is going to be the puff sleeve, I am also going to do the same thing. I'm pulling on the gathered thread that I just made to also get my gathers for the top of the puff sleeve. So guys, after I was done making gathers for the both of them, this is what I have. And you know, the end of this top sleeve is going to have an elastic, so, and I'm going to place the smaller one on top of it like this. So it's coming out really nice. So we are going to measure the armhole on our actual dress, and what I had there is 9 inches plus 1 inch for stitching allowance. So I'm going to ensure that what I have here on this armhole area of my sleeve is 10 inches by the time I'm done. So I'm just rearranging my gathers and giving it more space to give me the actual measurements that I need my sleeve to be. So 10 inches, because I've opened it up, that gave me 20, which is exactly 10 inches by the time I fold it back again. So I've gotten the exact measurement I need for this top part of the sleeve. And for the down, we are going to ensure that it's a little bit shorter than what the armhole area is for the one under. So I had that already. It's about 1 inch shorter, which is exactly what I want. So I'm just basically arranging the gathers to be evenly spread. Make sure you ensure that they are spread out evenly. This might be a little bit tricky. Everything is looking very gather-ish, but just take your time. You're going to realize that everything will come out really nicely. So basically now what I'm going to do, after getting the actual measurement I need the top sleeve to be, I'm just marking the middle, and also I'll mark the middle for the one that is going to be under. So now we just place the point we just marked on both parts of them together, and I'm just going to pin it down like this, as you see me doing like this, and then I will just go ahead and pin it all the way to the end of the other side. So guys, after pinning down that top, you can see how it's looking. I've not even stitched it down yet. So now the next thing I want to do is to place an elastic to the end of the sleeve. So I just measured 7.5, which is 2 inches less of what my measurement around my arm is. So that's what I'm going to use to place around this casing that I got earlier, that I told you guys that I stitched down earlier for my elastic. So you're just going to place the elastic into the casing and hold it down with a pin so that it doesn't come out through the other side while you continue with the rest of the process. So when you're done, remove your safety pin and also make sure that you pin it down as well with another pin so that the elastic doesn't pull through. So go ahead, go over to the sewing machine and stitch down everything now. Stitch down this armhole area and then the elastic part as well so that everything sits in place and is not opening up. So guys, I've gone ahead to use a tight stitch on my sewing machine to stitch down everything, the upper parts, and also to hold the elastic in place. So now I can freely pull my elastic, and this is what I have. So now I'm going to go ahead and join my sleeve to my blouse. So remember that I told you guys I was going to leave about 1 inch here before I start joining the sides. This is the reason why I decided to do that. So now what we're going to do is to mark the middle of our sleeve like this, and then you're going to place that marked point on the point where you joined your shoulders together. So just pin it down together. It's going to be a little bit hard to pin because of the fact that there is a lot of fabrics at that particular spot right now. So just go ahead and pin it into the other side of the armhole, pin the sleeve to the other sides of the armhole, and by the time you're done, you're going to have something looking like this. Can you see? I'm yet to stitch this down and it's already looking like this. So I'll go over to the sewing machine now and stitch this down with my sewing machine. So guys, after I was done holding it down with my sewing machine, you can see it's actually very secured now. This part of the sleeve is almost done. What I have to do left is to just go ahead and stitch the side of the sleeve, which is this side here. Just go ahead and stitch it down here like this. So this is what it looks like. Can you see the top sleeve on top of the other puff sleeve, looking really nice? So this is what it looks like after I was done stitching down this sleeve. So this is what we've been trying to get all this while. I actually hope that you guys were able to grab the process. So now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and also do the same thing for the other sleeve as well. And lastly, we're going to fix our zipper, and that will be all for this dress. So this is what I had after stitching down the both sleeves. Now I'm just opening up the zipper area so that I can go ahead and fix my zipper to the back, and that will basically be all for the dress. So this is it. I fixed the zipper and you can see how nicely our sleeves are looking, and this is basically all for this beautiful dress. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.